Now back to Smoke on the Water for more Straight Up with Sturge.
Welcome back in. 8:45 on this Wednesday night, Ash Wednesday edition of Straight Up with Sturge, coming to you live from Smoke on the Water. I tell you what, the band's gotten rocking again back there tonight. Boy, they are very, very good. But let's go to our guest line. Let's bring on, one of the legendary voices of college basketball over the last, I don't want to insult Larry, but 4 decades probably, Larry. And I know you got to be chomping at the bit that this gets to be one of the best times of the year in college basketball.
Well, it's actually four decades plus 1 year, 40th year to do it. So you hit it right on the nose. By the way, I wanted to tell you that I know it's Ash Wednesday, but doesn't it sound better when you say something like Fat Tuesday? There's a ring about that.
I tell you what, and that was yesterday down in New Orleans. And real quickly, Larry, my last 2 years at Alabama, I lived with a guy from Metairie, Louisiana, and we went those 2 years, and we did it inside style, not tourist style, if you know what I mean. Those were the best 2 years I ever had at Mardi Gras. So we never saw the French Quarter. That's right. Hey, listen, let's start with a little bit of a general question. Let's take the it's not how you drive but how you arrive approach. Who are you impressed with as they're playing basketball right now as we close out the regular season this week?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, if we had to take one team to look at right now and the way they're playing, it'd have to be Florida. I mean, they're absolutely on an incredible roll right now. They've won 22 games in a row. That's not to take anything away from North Carolina and Virginia, who are also having pretty good years. I mean, what's North Carolina at 12 in a row, and Virginia's 13 now? Yeah.
It's been incredible. That's one thing we've been talking about here in tonight's show, Larry, is what a job Brad Brownell's done at Clemson. And they were picked 14th in the preseason. They're probably going to finish 5th. But Tony Bennett's probably your coach of the year because of how well Virginia's played.
It's been unbelievable. And I would agree with Brad. I mean, he's had a terrific year. That was a good win for them last night, by the way, too. But I will tell you this. In the ACC, I don't know how you can give a coach of the year to anybody but Tony Bennett. I mean, with what they have gone through and what they've done to put that program together. I was looking at their stats today. They don't have a single player in the top 20 in scoring. Not a single player, and yet they won the Atlantic Coast Conference seasonal championship. I find that remarkable.
And they won it going away because, real quickly before Price takes over, we were talking about ACC Player of the Year, Larry, and who most valuable to their teams are Joe Harris and KJ McDaniels at Clemson, but they're probably not going to get all the support from the Tobacco Road media. What's most valuable and what's most outstanding are usually two different things.
Well, that's right, but if you look at this is always a tough decision you got to make. I mean, sometimes you vote your heart, sometimes you vote your head. If I looked at a player right now that contributes the most to his club, you could probably take one guy off each of the clubs that are continuing to have a chance for the NCAA. I'm going to tell you something. T.J. Warren at North Carolina State has been unbelievable this year. I mean, he has put up some big, big numbers. And I don't know where they would be without him in the lineup. But I could say that about a lot of guys in the league.
Well, Larry, Price Atkinson sitting in here with Mark tonight, and it's kind of funny as we're talking, about ACC Player of the Year. I was sitting here yesterday and even this morning when I was, getting ready for the show tonight and looking at the SEC, Players of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year. But I was sitting and looking at who possibly could potentially emerge and be voted Player of the Year. And there's some really good players in the SEC this year, but I just kept – you touched on Florida earlier – I just keep going, back to Florida and either, a Scotty Wilbekin or a Patrick Young or a Casey Prather. It's almost hard to try and pick that one guy where, that just stands out as the player in the SEC this year. Do you have one that really kind of stands out to you?
There are lots of guys in there. They've had a tremendous race for the scoring title in the Southeastern Conference this year. They've had about 8 guys within about 0.6 of a point of each other for about the last 2 months. And I mean, they all could be named Player of the Year in the Southeastern Conference. But I want to tell you the guy I would give it to. I would give it to Scotty Wilbekin.
Yep.
For a lot of reasons. He missed the first 5 games of the year because Billy Donovan had suspended him for violation of team rules, which covers an unbelievable array of things. But the fact that he was out of those 5 games and he came back, and I will tell you that if he's not in the lineup, that Florida team is a totally different club. They just don't play as well unless he's in there. He is a tremendous defender, a really good passer, and he just runs the club. I mean, the ball is in his hands for most of the time, and there's nobody else on that team will get anything done. When there's something that has to be accomplished, they look to him to do it. Not to take anything away from Prather or Young. They've had terrific years, but I just think Wilbekin is probably the most valuable player in that league, and on a team that absolutely just ran away with the Southeastern Conference this year.
We're talking with Larry Conley, college basketball analyst with Fox Sports South and Fox Sports Carolinas. I think Larry's going to be on the call for the Georgia-LSU game this Saturday. And let me stay in the SEC with you, Larry, and let me ask you, I'd be remiss if I did not ask you about the problems at Kentucky and what John Calipari's going through right now. You know, I was telling somebody earlier today, in addition to Mark, you know, John Calipari always gets labeled as a guy who just is able to recruit the best of the best, roll the ball out, and let them do their thing and go off and win 25 or 30 games. He doesn't get quite the credit for being the X's and O coach and developing players the way he is. But with that said, you know, obviously everybody knows about the youth that Kentucky has, but what is going on in Lexington right now with this Kentucky basketball team?
Well, the best way to explain it is I call them a bunch of disparate group players. They just have their own way of doing things, and they've never come together, I don't think, as a team all season long. I haven't seen one game this year that they played where I could really put a label on that's a good team. Yep. Everybody seems to go in their own direction. And it's not that they're bad kids. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just don't think that they really believe in each other as team members. Everybody has their own agenda. And I think that's caused a lot of problems on this club. And I don't think there's dissension. I think everybody's trying to do what they do best, but it just doesn't seem to come together and mold as one unit.
Larry, you know, another team on the ACC side of things that's struggling right now is Syracuse. You know, what started off 25-0 and now has lost, 4 straight games. Can the Orange get their moxie back? Because it wouldn't be the first time that a Boeheim team struggled coming down the stretch of the regular season, but puts it back together for the conference and then NCAA tournaments.
No, I would agree with you there. You know, the ACC's got an interesting group of teams in there. And Syracuse could be one of those clubs. They're going to get in the NCAA tournament. They probably dropped from a 1 seed, maybe down even to a 3rd seed, having lost 4 of their last 5. But don't ever think a team that doesn't have Tyler Ennis and C.J. Fair on it and Trevor Cooney that you think they're going to go away. Don't you ever believe that? Because he's got a good, solid basketball team that just kind of got away from him late in the year here. I think part of the problem they've had early in the season, Cooney, who is a tremendous three-point shooter, in fact leads the conference in three-point field goals made, everybody kind of just forgot about him because of those other players, and he just went off on his own and just started making threes. And all of a sudden, defenses caught up with him. They started watching all the tape and saying, we got to shut this guy down. And he has really, really struggled. And I think it's part of the reason why they've lost 4 of their last 5 games. My goodness, they got beat by Georgia Tech last night at home, and Tech's been up and down all season long. But I wouldn't count them out. They got too much talent on that club.
You know, Larry, when we're talking about ACC Coaches of the Year, and, you know, the first 2, obviously, that come to mind is Brad Brownell and Tony Bennett, Virginia. But another guy I think that right there is on the outside of that conversation, but really has done just a marvelous job at rallying his team and getting them to regroup is Roy Williams at North Carolina. And everybody knows the up and down roller coaster that was UNC basketball through November, December, and even into the early part of January. I want to talk about what Roy Williams has been able to do to transform this club into, I think, 12 straight wins going into Duke on Saturday night. What is their ceiling as far as how far do you think they could possibly go in March?
You know what's going to limit them? Some of your people that are listening out there, and I mean this sincerely, is their free throw shooting. It is horrendous.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get a team to go anywhere deep into a tournament, whether it's the ACC tournament or the NCAA, if you can't make your free throws. I mean, when you're shooting 62% from the free throw line, you got a real problem. Now, they continue to lead the league in rebounding by far, and Roy's always had a good rebounding team. And he's got good, talented players, and, of course, he had some problems early in the year. He finally got all those worked out, got rid of one guy, and everybody else seems to have come together. I mean, you can't win 12 games in a row in that league and not have everybody on the same page. And I think Roy's done a very, very good job. He and Brad absolutely would be right there as coaches of the year in that league, but I'm still going to go with Tony Bennett because of what he has done with that club.
And let me follow up on that on when you talk about teams that don't make free throws, Larry. I want to ask you about a team that does make a lot of them and does make a lot of three-point shots, and that's the Duke Blue Devils. And I hear a lot of people saying they think Duke is going to go far. They could go far in the tournament. I am just personally I'm not sold on Duke because they rely on the three-point shot so much. And right now they're down 8 with a minute to go at Wake Forest, and they're shooting 6 of 23 from three-point range tonight. Am I wrong in thinking that this Duke team, without a whole lot of an inside game that relies on the three-point shot so much, it can really make a run at the championship in March and in early April?
I think it's very difficult to get anything accomplished if all you do is depend on the three-point shot. You've got to have some sort of inside game. If you don't have a good inside game, you're probably not going to go very far. But the one thing Duke's got going for them is that I think they're a really good defensive club. Now, I will tell you that I think they play defense better at home than they do on the road. Now, I know that sounds strange, but I really do believe that. And plus, they've got two really outstanding players. I mean, I think Rodney Hood and Jabari Parker, I think, is freshman of the year in the country. He's had a tremendous year.
Well, Larry, thank you for your time tonight as we close up the show. Enjoy the call of LSU Georgia this weekend. And then, next Wednesday, we start the SEC and ACC tournaments. It's here. It's hard to believe that we've already gotten this far.
Well, it's that time of year. March is the best.
That's right. Well, Larry Conley, appreciate your time as always. Have a great weekend.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
One of the best, and I'm
Absolutely.
glad you got that in, that Duke's now down 10 at Wake Forest. It maybe takes a little bit of the sting off that Clemson loss at Wake Forest last week when everybody, they backed it up with a win over Duke, and I still don't think that's enough for Buzelic. I still think he's dead man walking.